Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this Warlords of Draenor raiding guide. And in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the flexible, which is the normal and heroic mode versions of the Twin Ogron in the Highmaul raid. Now, in order to complete this fight, you're going to want to bring a minimum of 2 tanks, and then a mixture of healers and DPS up to a maximum group size of 30, as this is the flexible difficulty. Now, this is kind of a council style fight in the sense of you're going to be fighting 2 Ogron at the same time, and it is worth noting that they do share a health pool, so throughout this fight, you're going to want to try and stack them up as much as you can in order to cleave DPS or multi-dot without having to switch targets too much, and just kind of deal that bit of extra damage to them without having them too far apart. It's also worth noting that they have an ability called Warming Up, which means that when you start the fight, the Ogron are going to wait 10 seconds before they use any of their abilities. Isn't that nice of them? Now, the Twin Ogrons have got tank abilities that you're going to have to deal with, but there is no tank switching required for this fight, so that's a bonus, so you do kind of want to keep that in mind when it comes to moving the bosses around. And first of all, we're going to take a look at Highmaul, who is one of the Twin Ogron. Now, his tanking ability is called Double Slash, and this is going to cause him to attack a target with both weapons, inflicting an increased percentage of his normal damage on top of what he'd normally deal. When he does cast this, you simply want to use cooldowns or have your healers heal you more than they normally would in order to deal with the additional damage that you're going to have to take. His next ability is called Whirlwind, and this is one for the melee players in the group, so melee are going to have fun again. And this will simply cause him to spin around in a circle, inflicting a high amount of physical damage every half a second for 9 seconds. And anyone that gets hit by the whirlwind will gain a debuff called Weakened Defenses, and this will increase the damage they take from Shield Bash by 10%. Now, that is one of Pol's abilities, and that's why your tanks are not going to be switching throughout this fight. When he does cast Whirlwind, you'll also want to make sure that your tank has moved him away from the raid, so that he's not going to kind of whirlwind on top of everyone's heads, especially if you're going with the stacking Highmaul and Pole up at all times. His next ability is called Enfeebling Roar, and this is going to cause him to furiously howl, so to speak. And what this is going to do is it's going to cause him to increase his damage that he's going to deal to people based on how many are currently stacked up. So if you are spread out and not near Highmaul, then he's going to deal high amounts of damage to the people that are close to him. But if you are stacked up near him when he casts Enfeebling Roar, then he's going to deal small amounts of damage to a larger number of people. So when he's going to cast Enfeebling Roar, all you need to simply do is move into Highmaul in order to soak and split the damage that it will deal. And his final ability goes by the name of Quake, and this is going to cause him to hurl both of his weapons to a nearby location and begin to violently pound the ground, inflicting nature damage to all players. Now, as he's doing this, he will also be casting an ability called Blaze, and this will come out from where both of his weapons have landed, and this will create kind of fire lines that are going to start moving towards players. You simply need to move away from the fire, otherwise you're going to take damage, and then also have a debuff placed on you which will deal fire damage to you every second for 12 seconds, and it will also stack up. So if you're going to stand in fire, you're going to get multiple stacks of the debuff, and you're going to take high amounts of fire damage. Now, the fire does move in a weird manner, so you do need to be aware of where it is moving. So it could look like it's moving diagonally, but it's just the fire that's diagonal, and it's actually moving in a straight line. So you just need to be aware of that. So now moving on to the second of the Twin Ogron, and this is Pol. And as I've just briefly mentioned when we were speaking about Highmaul, Pol's first ability is called Shield Bash, and this is going to cause him to savagely bash at his target with his shield, inflicting a higher percentage of normal damage, and also interrupt any spells that are currently being cast for 3 seconds. Now, because of this ability, again, you can't tank switch because of the double slash that Highmaul will deal, and the increased damage that tanks will take from that. His next ability is called Shield Charge, and this is going to cause him to charge in the direction of a distant target, inflicting high amounts of physical damage and also knocking back anyone that's in his path. Now, the damage increases based on the distance that he has travelled with this ability, and once he reaches the end of his path, he's going to slam his shield into the ground, inflicting physical damage to anyone that's within 10 yards and also knocking them back. Now, when he does cast this, you'll see which direction he's going to cast in because he kind of builds up, the ability's got a bit of a ramp up time on it, so you'll see where he's going to charge, and then he'll charge, so you should have plenty of time to move. It is worth noting that if you do get hit by shield charge, you will have a bleed effect placed on you, which will cause you to take damage every second for 18 seconds. His next ability is called Interrupting Shout, and once this has gone off, it will simply cause him to deal physical damage to everyone, and also interrupt any spellcasting for 6 seconds. So healers and spellcasters, you simply need to be aware of this ability when it's about to go off, and also making sure that you're not spellcasting at that time. And Pol's final ability goes by the name of Pulverize, and this is going to cause him to pulverize the ground, causing various chunks of the ceiling to slam into the ground. Now, the first Pulverize will strike the location of all players, and inflicting physical damage to players within 3 yards. The second Pulverize will loosen several chunks of the ceiling, and they will fall to the ground, inflicting physical damage to anyone that is near the targeted locations. And the final Pulverize is going to cause a cluster of chunks of the ceiling to fall at once, inflicting physical damage to all players, and also increasing in damage the closer a player is to the point of impact. Now, when Pulverize is about to go off, you want to spread out first within a 3-yard range of each other, as the first Pulverize will inflict splash damage to players that are near you when it goes off. When the second one goes off, you want to simply move away from the targeted locations on the ground, and they are fairly obvious to see as it's kind of a swirling brown patch that will appear. And then when the final Pulverize is going to go off, healers need to be aware that everyone is going to take damage, and everyone should also be moving away from the area on the ground where the rocks from the ceiling are going to land. Again, the further you are away from this third Pulverize that goes off, the less damage you are going to take. Now, what you will find throughout this fight is that certain abilities might overlap, so you do need to kind of prepare yourselves for taking damage from 2 abilities at one time, but at the end of the day, it's just making sure you're stacked up at the right time, spread out at the right time, and then also moving from fire when it does come towards you. So that's going to do it for this Warlords of Draenor raiding guide. If you are interested in future Warlords of Draenor raiding guides, then please do feel free to subscribe to the channel. And alternatively, if you'd like to view a written version of this guide, then please do click on the link that's in the video description below, or head on over to flaskup.com. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.